definitions of happiness are frameworks that always work. They are tools and practices that will bring permanent change to your life for better. We're not looking for temporary solutions. We change and transform. We practice what we preach, and we're gonna share it with you here. Be careful, because you can become seriously happier today. Hello, Dhruv. I'm happy to see you and to hear you again.
Hello, Jivan. Well, the same here. I'm very happy to see you and to meet you after a long time now. So let's see what comes up today.
Let's see. Let's get down to questions then.
Sure.
I know you for many years, for at least 10 years already, but most of the listeners don't. Can
Yeah.
you please a little bit about yourself? Do you see yourself purely as an astrologer?
While I do work with astrology, and a lot of my work comes from astrology, it is based on astrology. But if you notice, nowhere I put myself with the tag of astrologer. You will never find Dhruv Mehta astrologer. I don't mind being known as an astrologer, but I don't want to be put into a block of an astrologer, because when you work with astrology, you are simply trying to read the future of people, and you are a staunch believer of a fixed destiny kind of thing, and then you have to justify that. And I know for sure that I cannot justify that. I cannot justify that there is something like a fixed destiny. So I rather, while I work with astrology, but since I also work with spirituality, I work with meditation, I work with conscious living programs. So I like to call myself a spiritual explorer. Astrology is for me a spiritual tool. It is not only something with which you know the future of people. Maybe that is one of the use of astrology, but for me, it is more like an inner mirror. If I have to call myself something, that is a spiritual explorer.
But do you mind if I ask you some questions about astrology?
Why not? A big part of my work depends on astrology. It is based on astrology, so absolutely.
Can you please then explain what's the difference, in your opinion, between Western astrology and Jyotish and Indian astrology, Vedic astrology, if it's the right name for it?
Well, this is one of the questions that has always been asked. What is the difference between the Western zodiac and the Jyotish? And basically, there are differences at several levels. At the mathematical level, there are two different zodiacs. These zodiacs are about 23 degrees apart from each other. At one point, they used to be the same. The reason is uh, Jyotish, it uses the zodiac which is based on a fixed star. And today, this difference is about 23 degrees. However, the main difference comes in the predictive techniques and the goal. If you will visit a Western astrologer, there is a lot of psychological reading in it. So the astrologer kind of turns into counselor for you, which could
Mhm.
have been done without the use of astrology. But then you have this astrology, you have these planets and signs, and based on that, you still offer counseling. There are some predictive methods, very nice in Western astrology also. However, the difference in Indian astrology is that, you see, in India, everything is connected. Astrology, spirituality, and philosophy. There is no specific line where you say that, okay, here astrology ends and here spirituality begins and here philosophy begins. No, they are all connected. So the entire idea in Indian philosophy is that life is not something that begins with your birth and ends with your death. Life
Mhm.
is a process which keeps on. Your body is like the clothes you wear. When they are torn, when they are no longer used, they are thrown away. At some point, the soul will take the birth again. It is the same soul which takes the birth again. And with these souls are attached the desires and the karma, the information of the actions. Karma here means actions that
Mhm.
this soul has taken in the past. So this idea of reincarnation is central to everything Indian. All Indian philosophy, spirituality, it is based on this reincarnation idea. And that comes also in astrology. So while the Western astrology thinks that the moment of your birth contains the map of your future based on the
Mhm.
position of your planets, I would say the Jyotish considers that the map of the birth chart that which is the map of the planets at the moment of your birth, it is not just the map of your future, but on the contrary, it is more like the balance sheet of your previous births, your previous incarnations. The reason you are born to these parents in this house, in this country, is because it is in this place that you will be able to meet the consequences and the fruits of your karma. Now, just think about it like this. Let's say if I change only one fact about your life, let's say you are not born to this parents to whom you were born in this life, but let's say you were born to some other set of parents, would you turn out to be the same person you are today?
I doubt.
Even if you have the same inner skills and all the talents, but as a person you would be different. Now you see, this is where destiny begins. So this is the central idea of Indian Jyotish system, that your present is based on your past karma, and while the karmas that you will create in this lifetime will eventually determine your future. And then there are some technical differences in forms of in form of predictive techniques. There are lots of predictive techniques in Vedic astrology which aims not only at deciphering the personality of a person, but also for timing of events, and to identify what are the fixed events of your life and where you have freedom. To narrate all these differences is beyond the scope of our this short meeting, but I guess you get the basic idea.
But based on what you said, do you believe in destiny? Because if you're saying that what we have right now is basically the karma of the past that we have to outlive, it's our balance sheet. Can we change anything about this balance sheet?
For me, it is a central question. If I believed that everything in your life is scripted, like you are simply an actor coming on the stage of this life and simply playing your role, which was written by someone else, maybe some god up there or maybe some karma. If I believed in that kind of a fixed destiny, I would be highly demotivated to work with astrology. Because what is the point of knowing what is already destined? What is the point of knowing about something where you don't have any influence on the matters of your life, right? This is one central question to a lot of discussions about astrology, that do we have free will, or is there a destiny? Is everything destined, or can we change? I think this is also what you were asking. Now, see, I would like to think of it like this. The truth lies somewhere in between. I don't believe that everything is destined, because if everything is destined, then they shouldn't take medicine when they are ill, because if the destiny says that you are going to be healed, you will be healed, right?
Makes
Or
sense.
if someone says that everything, there is a free will in everything, look at how many times you have been stopped by circumstances which were out of your control. So the truth, I think, lies somewhere in between. Let's say you are a free citizen of your country. So theoretically, you could move anywhere in your country. You are free to go anywhere in your country. Let's say you want to go from your home to your workplace. Now, the shortest distance would be a straight line drawn from your home to your workplace. But you can't do that. You can't do, because while you are free to move anywhere in the country, you will move within the pre-designed structure of the roads and this infrastructure, whatever is made. So what I believe is that in our life, there are many things which are predestined, which is like this fixed infrastructure of roads. But within that fixed infrastructure, we have some freedom to move around. We could choose, maybe today I am going to take this road or that road. And with every choice, there are consequences. But there are this imposed, some structures which we would not be able to change. But then there is freedom. Within that structure, we have the freedom to make our choices.
That's a little bit more optimistic than just saying that everything is predestined, for sure. But how do you use astrology in your life? Do you use it in any way? For example, you have a newborn son. Have you already checked his chart?
Very good question. The same way I use a navigation system while driving cars. I drive a lot, and I love to drive it because I drive in many new places where I have never been. So I rely a lot on Google Maps, right? So I have this holder on the windscreen, like of my car, and Google Maps shows me where to go. They just take a lot of pressure off your head. You don't have to think about where to go, where to turn. It does all of it. So you rely on that, but you
Mm-hmm.
look at that time at time, but your primary attention is on the road. You
Mm-hmm.
can't, just because Google Maps shows you everything, you cannot afford to keep all of your attention on the screen of your phone or your navigation system. You just look at that and come back to the screen again when you see that, okay, some important turn is coming. You take a look and then all the attention back on the road. That is how I use astrology in my life as well. Then unlike, because I know some of my astrologer friends, they are obsessed with using astrology for every single thing, even when they want to buy a ticket to a train or a plane or anything. But in my case, I would use it if there is an important turn in my life. I would take a look at what lies ahead of me, and that's it. And then my focus will be back on life. That is how astrology is meant to be used. I mean, you're not supposed to keep all of your attention on what is happening on the stars. They
Mm-hmm.
are there to tell you, to guide you. Okay, this is coming. And then back into the life, what is coming? How do you respond to that? So yes, to answer your question, I have already, checked the chart of my son, and that's it. If you are seriously working with astrology, you would have to cross this state of paranoia. Beginning, when you're working with astrology, it is fascinating. You find, wow, this works, and now I can predict this and I can predict that. So in the beginning, it gives you a false sense of control and power, that because I know I am in control of situation, and eventually that turns into paranoia. All the negative things will also come out of this chart, and then you start living in a state of paranoia. All those who stick and go through that phase will eventually come out and use astrology the same way I guess I am using.
Otherwise, it would just simply take all the juice from life. I think you told me once that when you were still studying Jyotish, or when you were in the beginning, you were checking just everything, like what grades you will get,
Yes, 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 yes.
university,
Yeah,
even the color of the clothes that
yeah,
someone would wear.
yes, yes. I have a friend with his name is Samir Patel. He is probably 8 years senior to me, and once I went to interview him for a magazine. I was working for an astrological magazine as a sub editor, like writing some articles. So I just went to meet him, and then we met several times, and I became friend. And we used to do this kind of research, like someone would come and would try to interpret. There are people you would find who would vouch for that. Like if someone comes, he sits, and then we will work out this moment's planets and ask them that, is there some kind of renovation going on in your home? And they would say yes. Okay, fine. And it looks like that you are using this particular kind of color. And they say yes, fine. And it was very amazing. And I'm talking about before 23 years. You enjoy this kind of thing. It gives you some sense of achievement at that stage. But eventually that excitement fades, and you come to the real life things, like the things that really matter to you.
Do you believe that people can change? Do you believe that the person can change? You saw so many people coming to your sessions, and many of them come back as well.
Majority of the people do not change. For example, I meet this kind of like on an everyday basis. At least once I'll have someone in my consultation. Let's say a lady comes, and she is very upset with her husband. He's drinking heavily, and he is not cooperating with her. He's not being a family guy, and she's still holding on to this hope that maybe one day he will change. And I
Mm-hmm.
ask her how long this situation is going, and quite often it turns out that it is not in months or years, it is in decades. Like for 20 years it's going on, and still they have this hope. However, I would say most of the people do not change, but that is an incomplete sentence. People
Mm-hmm.
do change, and that change does not happen by reading motivational books. That change does not happen by going to seminars. That change happens when life hits you in such a manner that there is no other option for you but to change. You die or you change. That is the only situation, I think, when people change. I mean, I have not seen gradual change because someone understood. Basically, the kind of change you are asking for, it should not be called change. It should be called mutation. That is the kind of change we are expecting from people. And yes, mutations may happen, but they happen when some meteor hits your life, Otherwise, we are going to stay the same.
Okay, but still, people come for you for consultation, not only as an astrologer, but also, I would say, like a spiritual teacher. So when people come, if you wouldn't believe that they could change, I mean, then you would also feel that it has no sense.
I agree to that. But have you thought about this? That who are the people who come to for some kind of spiritual guidance? I don't remember. Maybe once in Moscow we talked about this thing that for a lot of people, spirituality, they think spirituality is like the ultimate emotional painkiller tablet, a pill.
Mhm.
Like, if I will become spiritual, all my pain will go away. But have you thought about who turns to spirituality? See, if you are having a very good job, if you have a girlfriend or a wife whom you really like and love, and she loves you back, if you are enjoying the weekend parties and traveling 3 times in a year to some different countries, and if all these things are keeping you busy, at
Mhm.
that stage, you are not looking for God. You're not looking for answers. Who is looking for an answer? I mean, basically, there are two kinds of people. The first kind of people are who have found that in spite of everything they have, there is a sense of emptiness which doesn't go away. It doesn't matter, like before they are living in a 1 bedroom apartment, now they are going to 4 bedroom apartment, and their car changes and their job changes and their visiting card changes, and yet that emptiness doesn't go away. So for them there is no option, they have to come to spirituality, and these are the people, I
Mhm.
think, who have potential to change because they have already been hit by life.
Mhm.
Life has hit them. Life has hit them in form of that emptiness. And then there are other kind of people who happen to accidentally come across some nice spiritual text, a book maybe by uh, one of, like, Osho, a great fisherman, who has the power to pull you in. Some such book pulls them in. It is yet not their own search, but it is more like a hope for a better life. That once I become enlightened, all my problems will disappear. This is the hope someone has given them, right? So these people are yet the ones who will not change. But there are
Mhm.
those who come to spirituality who have already been hit. So basically, if you are working with spirituality or consulting people on that, you are catering to a majority of those who have already been hit by life. There is a
Just
potential to change.
can you please share some of the weirdest stories with the clients?
I think 96, 97, when I and that my friend Samir Bhai, we were doing this research, and someone would come up and they would give these details, like, what can you predict about this chart, and then based on the chart, naturally, we'll apply the same principles which we apply to any other chart, and then we'll make some predictions. And so then this person eventually will laugh that, I just gave you my dog's birth details, and uh, so do you think you predicted that this person will become an engineer or this or that? Do you think this is going to happen? So and these are not clients really. There is another movement going on in India. So they are called rationalists, and they simply try to uh,
Mhm.
prove that astrology doesn't work and this doesn't work, and they come up with some arguments for that, and I'm totally fine with that. And see, astrology, or for that matter anything esoteric, should be used in context. I was saying that the principles which are used for prediction of human beings should not be used for animals, for a simple fact, like, most often a human baby is delivered alone. Like, when a
Mhm.
mother is pregnant, usually it's just one child. Rarely it happens twins or triplets. If you look at animals, for example, dogs, they can have four or five at the time, and they all have the same time, more or less, with the difference of several seconds or minutes. And this principle shouldn't be applied there. So they simply wanted to make fun of astrology, and I'm okay with that. They have their opinion. I know for sure that I don't know everything. And I know for sure that no one can know everything that exists. Our understanding is limited based on the senses. For example, we have these five senses which allows us to see and perceive things in this manner. But a mosquito sitting on your, on your hand doesn't know that there is this Dimitri sitting here or Dhruv sitting here, because it doesn't have those senses to perceive our existence. So why do we need to believe that we have the most evolved possible senses that could perceive the existence as it is, So I live with this idea that I don't know, maybe there are so many things which we cannot simply know because we don't have those senses or for perception of those things, So that's okay. That was one of the client, but then I grew up in India, right? So my first paid consultation was around 18 years of age, right? After I had some consultations, many people knew me. So someone recommended, and a man came with his wife in my consultation. Now, the reason I said that I grew up in India is because it is about the context of this story. So here is this man and his wife, and I consult them for about an hour, and they are going away. And while they left, I saw that there is some key left on my table, car key. So before I go out to give the key, the man comes running and he said, "No, don't worry, don't worry. I specially left the key here because I can come. I wanted to ask you something which I don't want my wife to hear. I have an affair with a lady for last 4 years. Do you think my wife will find out?" Okay. Now, see, for you, it may not sound strange, but for someone who grew up in the 70s and the 80s in India, at the age of 18, you only have heard such stories that it is possible that married man could have some affairs and this and that. So, I mean, from your point of view, it may not look nothing. But from my point of view, at that moment, I was literally shocked. Oh my God, these things really do happen in life, And after I have never looked back. And then there was another client. I'll tell you, he was a man. He is like an owner of a chain of man's apparels, man's clothing chain. So this guy came and he was recommended to me by someone who was in my consultation. So he said, "I want to make a decision to get married." Okay, now this guy is in his 50s, probably late 50s, He said, "I have the details of a woman and I would like you to check if you think that we have some common future, right?" Then he gave, and I answered whatever I had to answer. But then he kept coming up from his sleeve one by one chart. And believe me, he had 8 different charts for me to match with him. He wanted to make a choice and he already had 8 candidates, right? Now that was kind of weird for me, maybe because I come from a different culture, but then I found out that, it's not here also the same, like in European culture also, it's not very common that when you are ready to marry, you have 8 candidates in your mind, But then with this guy, he showed me chart of a boy. I very unsuspectingly told him that, it's interesting. You are showing me the chart of this boy who is the son of this woman. So interestingly, it looks like that this boy's chart is very close to your chart, as if it is your son, And then he stopped, because that's how it was, And honestly, it is not possible to tell from the birth chart of a person that this is your son or this is not your son. I said in a different context that it looks very similar chart, as if this is your son, right? But then people, this is also interesting thing that I quite often notice with clients, that people, when they come to consultation, they already have answers in their mind. And they take away those answers which justify their theories or their answers, right? So eventually, because of this guy, many people came to my consultation, because apparently, which I consciously didn't do. He said that Here is a guy who could look at your chart and he found out that this is my boy. Even my wife doesn't know that I have a boy from another woman, but this guy found out. Now this was an act. I'll be happy for such coincidences if it brought me several new clients. So well, there are lots of weirder stories, but most of them are more with personal donations, personal information about people, right?
I understand. We were just traveling in India. I know that it's still a part of the culture that before marriage, people are coming to the astrologer to find out whether they can get matched or not. And one of the funny stories that we came across there was that couple that they went for an abhishagam. I think it was even like a more advanced procedure at the temple.
Okay.
And, they said that they got married at an unfavorable period that can actually ruin their family life. And we thought, that's funny. Why did you get married? You should have waited. And they said, okay, according to astrology, that period lasted for 20 years. So if they wanted to get married, they would need to wait until that period would end. So it's easier for them to go to the temple and do the serious kind of procedures. I'm curious, what is your attitude about the difference in love marriage and this traditional Indian marriage? Because as far as I understand, like in Bollywood, they are getting more into this love, Western kind of approach. And in the rest, especially in southern India, it's more traditional.
Okay, your question is kind of a multi-layered question because you described the situation where people went for some spiritual ritual, so some not spiritual but religious ritual, which kind of gives them the license to get married in a wrong period which lasts for 20 years, right? First of all, I don't agree that such a long period of 20 years is there. I mean, it's not possible for any period, whether a fantastic period or a terrible period, to last for so long as 20 years. That's too much. Secondly, there are a lot of things involved here. These rituals, let's face it, it is also a business. And wherever there is business, there are malpractices. I'm not saying everyone is doing malpractices. In every profession, you'll find very nice and very kind doctors, and you will find evils among them as well, right? So evil exists everywhere. It exists here also, in that sense that there is this modus operandi that, first of all, you talk about a huge problem. Okay, the bigger the problem, the solution is going to be automatically bigger than that, right? So you talk about something that if you don't do this, you frighten people that this is something terrible. However, if you do this, however is like a magical word they use, that if you do this, you will be able to get out of the situation. Wherever we don't know, wherever we are not very aware of, or we don't know the technicalities of things, it is easy to frighten us. It is easy to take advantage of our ignorance there, and people feel they feel panic that because you want to marry someone, and then you have waited for so long, and finally you got, and now this God has thrown this 20 years between two of you. So okay, let me pay few thousand rupees and let it be solved. So I'm not saying that it doesn't work. There are things which would work, but in majority of the cases, the problems are created by the consulting astrologers themselves. Because if I would not create the problem, you would not go for that treatment, and because always the money that you get from the treatment is significantly bigger than the money you get from the consultation. So that's why many astrologers offer free consultations, but then they'll point you to some spiritual spa, So that is one thing from your question. The other thing about the love marriage and the what you call the arranged marriage, right? This is an interesting statistics. I was reading on it because I do this seminar series called "Love is Not Enough." In the Western culture, practically every marriage, unless you are the royal, now even royals have started making love marriages, but unless you are a royal, most people, they do love marriages. They fall in love with someone. That is why they choose to marry that person. You look at the rate of divorces and separation in the Western culture. I would say, from all the people who visit me for consultation, or people who come in my contact just out of the professionals situation also, I would say at least 50% of them have been with different partners. They are not with the same partner with whom they started. The statistics says that 50% of the first marriages they end up in divorce. 70% of second marriages end up in divorce, so that they have to go for third. And there is a big number of third marriages because, and then look at India, or for that matter, Asia. Even I was visiting Kazakhstan, Almaty, and I saw that Almaty from the outside, the buildings and other things are. You can see the Western influence. If you are in some building in Almaty, you can feel you are in Europe. But if you talk to people, you are in, because of the difference in the values. All the people who were coming, like the women, and when they will talk about getting married, they would ask that, I want to be very sure, because we don't want to go through the process of divorce. This is a thread going across entire Asia, that one of the most important values of Asian culture is that marriage is not a union of two people, but of two families and two extended families. They don't want to have separation or go through this process of divorce, and that is why the arranged marriage. And these arranged marriages, they usually stay longer than love marriages. This is this is statistic. You could check anywhere. Now, many people come to me. I work in the EU also, and they come to me and they would ask, like couples, that we are in love and we want to get married. What do you think? Do you think we match or not? So then I ask them one thing: have you made a decision that you are going to get married? They said yes. Then I say, please don't ask this question then, because if you have made a decision, and if I check, and if I found out that it looks like you're not going to stay together forever, maybe 5-7 years maximum, and then you will separate, then even if you say that I don't believe in astrology, there will always be at the back of your head this thought, and every time you will have a fight, one of you will say that, yes, I knew that we are not meant for each other. So if you have made up your mind, please don't check. Now, checking, you could do that. You should be ready. I mean, just asking someone and then not listening to their advice, it's the waste of time and energy for everyone. If you check, then you need to consider what is at stake. But at the same time, I'm telling one thing to everyone. See, this is an irony that I work with astrology, but I tell people that I'm a kind of an obsessive guy. So if I want something, and even if astrology says no, I would go for it, whether it is a situation, an object, or a person. Even if astrology says that this is not going to work out, I would go for it. That does not mean astrology is not working. What it means is that I know that the consequences are not what I would want, but then I want this thing so much that I am also willing to embrace the consequences. The problem with people is that they want things, they want to get in love, they want to marry a person, they love, but then they don't want the consequences which might come with that. This is the bottom line of my approach in astrology, that astrology works. It will tell you what you can expect from your life. It doesn't mean that all astrologers follow what they believe to be right. Doctors know that if you smoke, you can have cancers, but look at how many of them are smoking outside. But that is with the understanding of consequences. If you embrace the consequences, everything is right. Got carried away with the different stories. So did I answer your question or not?
You did answer it.
Okay.
I was really lucky to translate for you for some time, and what I got from you, and at least how I perceive astrology right now, is that it can give you keys. For example, I'm in a very good relationship with my father right now, and with my mother as well. But when I was growing up, due to different reasons, I wasn't seeing that much of my father. I mean, as much as I would want to. And I remember that I asked you about that, and you checked my chart, and what you told me was a key that I took with me through the years. You told me that whatever we don't have in our lives is something that we can give others, or something that we can create ourselves if we acknowledge that we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really powerful. It's about taking responsibility
Mm-hmm.
for our lives and making it the way we want it to be. Really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Astrology is not an escape from responsibility. On the contrary, I believe that it is the principle of astrology. First of all, you are responsible for everything that happens to you. If, yes, you may not have the power to control everything that happens to you from outside, but uh, you are responsible for how you react to what is happening to you. And what you're talking about, I like to use the word inner resources. I guess you know this thing. So this is my approach, that we've got this inner resources. We are all born with different inner resources, or we are born with the absence of this inner resources. And it is this inner resources, presence or absence, that determines what you can do in life with, or what you cannot do, or where you will face challenges. But then you should think of this inner resources like, baking a cake. If
Mhm.
you bake a cake, you need the eggs and the flour and sugar and whatever cream and everything. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to have all of these things in your fridge or your kitchen. If you don't have something, in India, we will go ask the neighbor. If you can't ask the neighbor, you go out to
Mhm.
the shop and buy them. What is important is that if you want to bake the cake, let's say you want to create your own business, you need to have certain inner resources which you don't have in your chart. Then go out and get them from outside. There are techniques, there are ways by which you can import an inner resource, or you can associate with a person who already has this inner resource. So once you gather all these inner resources, you will be able to bake whatever you want to bake. And I remember, Jeevan, we talked about this. We didn't talk immediately after we met, but after we had several consultations, and when kind of, the ice melted, you told me that, Dhruv, before we did consultations, like you translated for me. Before that, there was an evening where I was giving some lecture and you were translating, and you told me that, I felt so much intense resistance to translate for astrology, because at that moment, just before that, I guess you had translated some audios of Osho where
Yeah,
he was
yes.
bashing astrology. Yeah.
I was actually making subtitles, Russian and English subtitles to his discourses. And I think in one of the discourses, he was, I don't know, what is the proper word for that? So he was kind of against astrology.
He was bashing. But see, Osho's words are not to be taken uh, at face value. He could justify everything. In one lecture, he will justify that astrology is nonsense. In another, he could justify that why the hell are you not consulting astrologers? It get, this is the this is the most important thing. So I mean, he's a master of that. But anyways, it's I think we are deviating.
Yes.
You mentioned uh, you had some list of questions. Is there something left on your list?
I wanted to ask you, do I remember correctly that your grandfather was a Brahmin? So does it imply that you're a Brahmin too?
This is interesting because according to Indian traditions, Brahmins, Brahmin is not a title. It is a caste in which you are born, right? So uh, my grandfather was a Brahmin because he was born to a father who was a Brahmin, who was born to a father who was a Brahmin. So if you're born to the family of a Brahmin, you are a Brahmin by default. You Brahmin is a title you haven't actually earned. I mean, earned by doing something right now.
Okay, okay, I get
Uh,
it.
so yes, indeed, in that
So
sense.
you
But
are a Brahmin.
uh, yes, I like to say differently. I like to say that I am born in a Brahmin family. You know, uh, I, I stopped saying I am a Brahmin long time ago. It doesn't mean I am not a Brahmin. I'm born in a Brahmin family, but there are different connotations to that. When you say that I'm a Brahmin, it means you take pride in the fact that you were born into a Brahmin family. And I don't want to take pride into anything which simply happened. I didn't do anything for that. And it's very important.
Maybe you did because
No, but
this is
I'll
the
tell you
balance
what
sheet of the
is
past
important.
lives.
Because the moment people start taking pride as a Brahmin, there are people who are, it is expected for people who are not born as Brahmins or who are born into lower castes uh, to feel shame for themselves being, or feel guilt for themselves being in the lower caste. So, I mean, this is more of, I think, as a part during the process of my personal spiritual journey, I realized that this is not to be used. I mean, of course, when my organizers make texts about me or advertisement, they always mention born through Brahmin, this. But when I have to say, I always say through born into a Brahmin family.
Okay. Your mother's Brahmin then.
Yes, yes, and so you see, Brahmins. There is no way in India to change your caste. You can change your religion. For example, one fine day you could decide that I no longer want to be Hindu and become a Muslim. There is a procedure you could go and change your religion, or you could become a Hindu or anything else. But once you are born in a certain caste, there is no way you can change your caste. Like there is no upgradation system for that. You're born stuck there.
So, do you remember anything, like any story from those early days, from those days of the past?
Yes, but it is not about astrology. But see, uh, uh, grandfather lived in a village, right? He was like a priest. He used to do this yagyas and pujas and rituals and everything. And he was very, very religious. And so every vacation we were supposed to go to grandparents and live there, I and my brother. I personally hated that for several reasons, because in grandfather's home there was a rule that you wake up, after waking up immediately you brush your teeth, clean your mouth, take bath, and sit in front of the god. And there is a fixed number of malas. You have this malas. So you do malas of like, for example, minimum 5 mala rotations of 108 multiplied by 5 of Gayatri mantra, right? Only then you can have breakfast. Then for lunch you had to have some practice, some sit in front of this. We have this uh, you call this altar. We have this temple in home, small temple, where there are all different gods, and you sit there, and first you do some prayings and you offer the food to the god, and only after that you would have your lunch and this and that. So of course I did this mala in the beginning. I did it because I thought that's how life works. I discovered with other friend that it's not like that. You can still have breakfast if you don't do a mala. Then I started hating, actually. I don't remember any particularly other memories. It's just that it was very religiously, very strict environment where you have to do some morning, afternoon, and evening spiritual, religious practices. Not spiritual, but religious practices.
Thank you for your time. It was good in all the ways for me personally, and I think it's valuable as well for everyone here.
And I'm very happy.